Good morning and welcome. Today's session, we will spend time together talking about how SAP enterprises are accelerating data innovation with the Cortex Framework. To introduce you to today, my name is Alison Hettrick. I'm Director of Solutions of Cortex Framework. I have along with me today.
Hi, I'm Lucia Subatin. I'm the technical lead for Cortex Framework.
And
I'm Philipp. I'm Director of Data at Grupo Boticário.
We have a number of things that we plan to cover in today's session. First, we want to cover what's top of mind for many enterprises and our clients. Number two, we'll give you an overview of the Cortex Framework. Number three, we'll talk about how Grupo Boticário is innovating with the Cortex Framework and some of the unique things that they are doing as part of their journey with us. We'll help you understand where to learn more, as well as take a portion of today's session. For those of you who are bold, you see the mic in the center aisle. We'll be taking questions. So with that, let's get started. What's top of mind for enterprises today are really around three main areas. Number one is how to break down the data silos between different applications within the enterprise and between and across data. The second area is around how to improve insights with data. And last but not least, and most importantly, for many enterprises, it's about looking at how to innovate and do so faster. So how are we helping our clients accelerate their journey with data and AI? And what does that mean? About 2 years ago, we introduced the Cortex Framework into the market. And the Cortex Framework really focuses on three main things. The first is a set of reference architectures that can help to simplify delivery of data and analytics use cases and innovation. The second element is a set of deployment accelerators. So this includes content to help kickstart your journey. And the third area focuses on packaged services that are delivered with our partners that can help you to streamline and fast track your deployment. So what's in the Cortex Framework? Well, first, we're focused on the availability of strategic data sets across a variety of different data sources delivered through one foundation. The second element of the framework focuses on how to deliver insights through packaged examples and solution content for many different use cases. We've looked at the common use case patterns across a variety of different scenarios, and we're providing accelerator and package content for different types of use cases. The last area is that our framework, the content we're developing, the reference architecture examples, are based on our open data and AI platform. So what's in the Cortex Framework? It starts with the ability to connect to a variety of different data sets and data sources, both Google delivered, enterprise, such as SAP, for example, as well as public and community. We're flexible with the framework in meeting you where you are, in providing a streamlined and very flexible way to ingest and manage data, utilizing Google tooling or your tooling of choice. And in the framework itself, we're providing packaged data models in Google BigQuery, as well as data processing scripts and templates. On top of that, we make it very easy for you to share data externally with our application layer, as well as realize analytics, insights, and visualization faster with our example looker blocks and templates, as well as our machine learning content that now is starting to incorporate the latest advancements with large language models and generative AI. We're delivering all of this for a combination of different use cases. Chief among them include things like sales and marketing, supply chain, sustainability, and finance. As you take a closer look at one of the cornerstones of the Cortex framework, there are a variety of different data sets. What you see represented here is just a sampling for purposes of this discussion. We have a very rich set of data models that you can start to take advantage of. And the benefit to you is that we're taking the guesswork out of how to manage and integrate data for a variety of these different packaged use cases and scenarios. And what's nice about the foundation is that you can rapidly apply the data foundation and content across a variety of different use cases. Chief among them, data based on your SAP ERP-based environments. What I'll do now is turn it over to my colleague Lucia, who will provide you with a deep dive around what's in the framework and some of the technical aspects and highlights. So over to you, Lucia.
Thank you, Alison. Let me unlock my machine, because of course it would do that. And if we turn it over to the demo, I would like to show you how you actually get started. I only have 5 minutes though, so I'll go as fast as I can. But I'm happy to stick around for the Q&A or outside the room for one-on-one chats. Our demo starts with GitHub. And that is one of the great things about the Data Foundation, that we're open source. One of the reasons why we're open source is that we know that each customer will have their own unique business rules to apply. And that means that you need to be able to tweak our models, and you need to be able to adapt them to those business rules to make your business users happy. So we're happy to provide this through an open source framework. Now, if you were to get started, even if you're new to Google Cloud in general, if you haven't done any GCP or BigQuery related stuff before, we got you covered. So if you head over to the GitHub, for which we'll have the link afterwards, you'll see that we have a lot of documentation, including the reference architectures, the ERDs for the different data models for everything that we have, including SAP ECC, S4, Salesforce, and the marketing content that today has Campaign Manager, TikTok, and Google Ads. And then when you're ready, you're going to click on this. I'm going to show the full experience. Little button here, and this button will basically clone the repository and start to set you up for a sample demo implementation that will include test data. So if you're starting here, what I would recommend is to get a project from scratch, a new one, and have all the permissions that you can for that project, and be sure that you can throw it away. And when you're ready, you're going to configure this deployer. It's going to ask you what you want to implement from all of our samples, and it's going to check dependencies. It's going to check that you have the data sets that you need to get started and all the GCS buckets, and you will have the chance to choose if you want to deploy everything or subsets of our content within our accelerators. The beauty about this is that it will show you what good looks like, in the sense that after this 25-minute deployment finishes, you will be able to jump into BigQuery and see what the data does with our models. So again, this is going to take 25 minutes, so I'm going to go into BigQuery to show what the end result is. What you will find in BigQuery is, in my case, I chose all of the data sets. So I have a set of raw landing data sets and change data capture data sets, and then we have the reporting layer. So I cannot go into the details of what those other two data sets are, but basically what you need to understand is that we build this under a principle of openness, which means that we are prepared for you to use any integration tool as long as that replicates the exact same source structure. So for example, in the case of SAP, if you were to use any integration tool, as long as you have the tables with the same names and the same data types as SAP created them, we will handle them in our reporting models. I went straight into the SAP reporting here, but you have models for a lot of other things if you want to play with them. We have over 100 models today, and these models eventually get consumed by our Looker dashboards. Now, going back to the principle of openness that I was mentioning, the Looker dashboards include a lot of out-of-the-box samples and dashboards to feed for your business users around finance and order to cash, supply chain and inventory management. But if you decided to use another reporting tool, we're cool with that too. And you will find all of the little joins and filtering that we applied in Looker in sample view so that you can take that into a Tableau, for example. So Alison was mentioning the application layer as well, and I want to give that a little shout out. The application layer is a nice way of getting onboarded into microservices that can tap into data in the Cortex framework. So if you were to run our machine learning models that come out of the box for product recommendation or customer segmentation, you would use, for example, the application layer that will do everything so that you have either a microservice exposing an HTTP endpoint or a pub sub to write back into, for example, an SAP system using the ABAP SDK. The other thing that you'll find in the marketplace is demand sensing. Demand sensing is one of our samples that combines large language models and machine learning to provide forecasting for sales out of historical orders, sales orders, and different data signals coming from Google search trends and Google Ads and, for example, the weather. Now with that, I am in my 5 minutes, and I'm going to invite Philipp to tell us how they are using Grupo Boticario, Cortex in Grupo Boticario.
Thank you, Lucia. So before I talk a little bit about our case at Grupo Boticario, how we use Cortex, I'd like to give you a brief overview of who Grupo Boticario is and what we do, because I assume most of you have never heard of us before. So Grupo Boticario is a Brazilian beauty company. So we make and we sell beauty products, for example, products for personal hygiene, fragrances, skincare, shampoo, sunscreen, makeup, and perfume. Grupo Boticario is a multi-brand company. So we have nine own brands. Our most popular brand is called O Boticario, which has also been voted for the 5th consecutive year in a row as the most popular beauty brand in Brazil. But we also have licensed brands, internationally known brands such as Australian Gold or Bio Oil. Second, we are an omnichannel company, so we have more than 4,000 physical retail stores. We have a single brand and multi-brand e-commerce sites. We sell through B2C, B2B, direct sales, and we offer a true omnichannel experience for our consumers through in-store pickup, a single loyalty program, and a unified customer view. And last but not least, Grupo Boticario has a very high degree of integration, so we operate on the whole value chain. This means we start with research and development, then we produce the products in one of our 3 factories, we distribute them, and we also sell them through our various channels. So having said that, we don't only consider ourselves as a beauty retail company, but as an ecosystem, because we also offer digital products and services to other retailers, products which go far beyond just selling perfume or makeup. I brought here some big numbers to give an overview of how this translates in our day-to-day operations. Grupo Boticario is now more than 40 years on the market. We have more than 4,000 physical retail stores. Our products are sold in more than 50 countries. We have 15,000 direct employees. We make more than 600 million items per year. We launch more than 600 new products each year. And we also have the largest e-commerce beauty marketplace in Latin America. And this makes us also the biggest cosmetic franchise on the planet. So we have own stores, and we also have stores operated by franchise partners. However, Boticario hasn't always been a digital company, right? We were founded in the 70s, and the company made a huge investment from 2019 onwards. So our technology team back then had about 200 people, and now about 4 years later, we are nearly 3,000 people. And a big part of this investment was also made in data, so the team I'm working with. And one of our first tasks was to move data to the cloud. So we started quite late in comparison to other countries. So we started in 2019. And we choose BigQuery as the core of our data platform. Why did we choose BigQuery? Because we like the on-demand model, and we didn't want to worry about sizing, so we needed speed. That's why we chose BigQuery. However, our data stack is not just limited to BigQuery. Basically, everything is built on top of a mix of open source products, for example, for the data catalog, and other GCP products. So we use, for example, PubSub, we use Dataproc, Dataflow, Looker, just to mention a few, and Vertex AI. So all of our AI models, or ML models, the pipelines, they're all running on Vertex AI. And today we already have more than 60 applications using AI, where we embedded AI into the process, or where we used AI to change the process. I brought here 3 examples of how we use AI specifically to our industry. So we use, for example, AI to forecast demand, to predict demand. We have a very sophisticated model which does this prediction based on a point of sale and SKU level. So we look how much each store will sell of each product, and this in turn feeds back into the factory. So we determine how much we want to sell, how much do we need to produce, and this number goes back to the factories. And then we use also AI to distribute this inventory across all the stores, so to avoid overstocking or stock out. We also use AI to determine the best locations for new stores. So we are opening quite a few stores each year. And since last year, all the locations are determined by a model which uses more than 2,700 variables to determine the best location. And the third example I brought here to share with you is from research and development. We have a product, a model which we call internally Lyra, and it's used to automate quality tests. As I mentioned before, we launch 600 new products each year, and we also make changes to existing products, so to the formulas of existing products. And every time this happens, we need to run dozens of tests to make sure that the product, when we change the formula, still behaves the way it was designed to behave. For example, if we use sunscreen when we change the formula, we need to make sure that the product maintains its viscosity if it's exposed, for example, to higher temperatures, let's say 30 degrees Celsius. I don't know how much is in Fahrenheit, but imagine a hot summer day. We need to make sure that it still works the same way it was supposed to work. Previously, we had to make all these tests in the real world, so we took the sunscreen, put it in a box, heated that box, put it away, and then we came back 2 weeks later to see if it still maintains characteristics. And today we can use AI to automate, make those tests in a virtual environment, which helps us to reduce time to market and also helps us to create much more detailed audit reports, which are required by the regulatory organ in Brazil to get those products approved. So, as you can imagine, the data used by these models hasn't always been available in Google Cloud. Lots of this data comes from transactional systems like SAP. In our case, we are using ECC and HANA. And we were suffering until 2021 to get this data ingested into GCP. So what was the issue? These tables have been created more than a decade ago, and back then, not necessarily always what you would consider best practice were applied. So we had no timestamp. We had to run full ingestions to get this data into GCP, and we're talking about tables, huge tables with up to 100 billion rows. So we had to split these big tables into several chunks. We needed, on the one hand, an SAP architect who was able to decipher that schema for our cloud engineers. So we needed always 2 groups of people. On the one side, SAP experts. On the other side, the cloud, our data engineers. And they had to somehow meet in the middle to make these ingestions happen. And some of those, it took several weeks, up to a month. So it was a very frustrating process, as we always, not always, but sometimes we encountered errors along the way. This could be errors related to coding, just coding errors, but also problems related to resources, so that our connection, for example, got cut off in the middle of ingestion because we were putting too much load on the production database. So if you think of a timeline, we're talking here about early 2021, mid-2021, and at the end of the year, we thought this is not sustainable, not scalable, we need to change something. because our data engineering team, which was already quite big then, like 150 people, they were spending about 80% of their time just with data ingestion, right? So instead of spending time to prepare data, to clean data, prepare it for analysis, for AI, they were spending their time just to get that data from SAP to GCP. So we tried SLT, which helped us in the sense that we now had CDC, but all of the data filtering and deduplication still required engineers. So this is where Cortex came into play, and this was really a game changer for us. We implemented Cortex at the end of 2021, and all of the heavy lifting, so understanding which data is new, which actually do we need to bring into GCP, all the mapping, the filtering and deduplication is now being done by Cortex since more than a year. And for us, this was a game changer because our engineers were now able to focus on tasks which create more value, such as instead of spending their time to ingest data, they were able to move data from the raw layer to the trusted and refined layer, where we have more actually use for the data, right? So this was a huge gain for us. We were able to cut the time, the average time from the moment someone requested data until that data was available. It used to take us 9 days, and I'm not talking about these these ingestions which took weeks, a month, but the average time was 9 days. We were able to cut the time to today 2 hours. As I mentioned before, our data engineers, they can now also focus on tasks which create more value. We were able to reduce deploy incidents to 0. This was also very frustrating. Once you thought, okay, everything should be working, then after a couple of days, you got an error. You had to start all over again, investigate what was going wrong. And last but not least, Cortex is also a huge accelerator for our ECC to S4 migration. So we are migrating right now, and if we had to do it the old way, you could easily add like 1 year at least on top of the time necessary to migrate those systems. However, this is not the end, so we are aware that Cortex has many more applications and use cases than just SAP data ingestion. We are evaluating these right now. We also see Cortex as an enabler for decentralization, because at Grupo Boticário, we share the vision that data is for everyone. We don't want the data team to become a bottleneck, so we want to empower other teams outside of the data team to ingest data on their own without any dependency from our own data team. So, for example, developers or data analysts, they should be able to get data into GCP without requiring any help from the data team. And we created an internal tool which makes this happen. So we call it our internal ingestion framework. It's called Arc Ninja. It's basically a user-friendly interface with with connectors which are already built in. And the SAP connector is using Cortex in the background. So what's the benefit here? The users who use that tool, they don't need to know anything about SAP, about Cortex, how it works. They just select origin, destination, frequency, and a like user-friendly drop-down menu, press the button, and then ingestion will happen without any help from the data team. This, in turn, also accelerates our journey to a data mesh, something which you're looking to. And we are sure that Cortex also has other applications besides data ingestions. So this is how we use Cortex at Grupo Boticário.